Erev Tov. We're in Derech Hashem Chilek Aleph Perek Chamishi, Part 1, Chapter 5. And we just finished the first section, first paragraph. And just to recap, the name of the chapter is called B'chelkei Avriyom, Atzveim, different parts of creation. And he first makes the initial division is between physical and spiritual, explaining that under the category called physical is everything that's tangible or sensible. Maybe I don't know if that's the English word correct, but it's possible to sense it with our senses. And they're divided into the upper bodies, the heavenly bodies, and the earthly bodies. That's all considered physical, even though it's heavenly bodies. No matter how far you go in outer space, it's still considered physical. And the earthly bodies. After that, there's the spiritual bodies, which we're not so familiar with. That's going to get more elaborated on tonight. And he says that they are negated of anything physical that is tangible, and that's further divided into neshamos and nevdolim. Neshamos means a kind of a spiritual being which is destined to join with the physical being. We call it a soul usually. And the nevdolim, by definition, means that they're separated. It means that they are not connected to anything physical. They're just purely spiritual. And those nivdalim are further subdivided into what he calls kochos and malachim. Kochos means forces, spiritual forces. We'll see tonight also what that means. And malachim, which are angels. He says there are many levels of them, so they might even be considered different classes and different subdivisions and species, but they're all under the category called malachim or kochos. He puts in a side point that there's something else that's something of a hybrid, that's partly spiritual, partly physical. That is sheidim, which usually is translated in English as demons. And he says it has some aspects of spirituality, some aspects of physicality. And we just quoted the Gemara last time, the Chagiga. He doesn't quote, that's probably what I was referring to. The Gemara Chagiga says that they have wings and they fly, and they also could hear what is going to happen in the future. On that aspect, on those three aspects, they're considered angelic, but they're human-like in the fact that they eat and drink and they reproduce and die. He doesn't explain what they are, well, what the purpose is, and in the whole parak, even though he's going to elaborate on these different categories, he's not going to elaborate on sheidim, and I don't recall in the rest of the sefer that he does either. So I don't know what to say about it. I don't know what the point of sheidim are. They are mentioned in the pasuk la sirim la sheidim lo aloha. There's even reference to them in the psukim also, and Gemara's talk about sheidim sometimes, but they're not under the category called angels. Just that alone is some information that maybe will be helpful one day. That sheidim, demons, are not in the category called angels. Angels are only spiritual, purely spiritual, and sheidim are some things physical about them, which is a Gemara already. Not only the Ramchal, the Gemara says that.
They eat and they drink?
That's what it says. Angels don't eat and drink, and even when they came to Rabbi Avrohom, it only, like Rashi says, that they just imitated, they made as if they were eating, but they don't actually eat. Angels don't eat. But sheidim, it says that they do have to eat and drink, and they reproduce, and they die. So I don't know what to say. I don't have any information. My guess is as good as yours. I don't know. I also don't know what their job is, what their purpose is. But this alone is informative to know that it's not under the category called angels. I didn't know that before I saw it over here. I should have, when the Gemara says that they're somewhat human. Angels are not like that. When
Bilam saw the angel, there was a spiritual vision.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Bilam saw the angel, there was a spiritual vision.
Yes, kind of a nevuah. When he saw it, it means the donkey also was able to see it. The donkey so that means that there was something. Sometimes you find that angels sometimes are visible. So that's true. That if they're not physical, not nirgashim mechushenu, so how could you find that sometimes angels, Eliyahu and Navi also sometimes? So I think there's some sofer about it that says that he can clothe himself in a physical body for when it's necessary. But not that that's him. It's just like a mamash masquerade. Oh. I'm trying to the way I understood it, but it's not him. But the shade inherently is something physical about him, like he says here, like the Gemara Chagiga says.
The malachim came to Avram.
Right. Also, anytime that you see malachim that they're disguised as people, so that's only a disguise. It's not them.
Right. Maybe just Avram saw them. Other people didn't see them.
But if it's inherently not physical and it's not tangible, it's not muchash, so how are you able to see it? So you must say that angels also have a possibility of disguising.
If he would have saw it spiritual, then he wouldn't have given them food.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Okay, so that was that subdivision, and then he just points out the main issue probably is going to be man, and man is not a demon, right? But he points out that a demon is partly physical, partly spiritual. It means it has some aspects of each, but man is not like that. Man is unique in the whole creation, that he's a whole physical being and a whole spiritual being that are blended together, and that's the neshama and the guf that is unique to man. There's no other creation. Everything else is either spiritual or physical, or you could have the demon that would be something of each, part of each. But man is the only one that has these two creations that are blended together, merged together, bounded together, and that's how you get man. And he says, don't get confused from other living beings like animals or birds. You might say they also have a combination of a living soul and a physical body. So he says the living soul of animal life is also physical. It means that life force, even though you say it's something that's not like meat and bones, it's something that looks spiritual. Don't get mistaken. It's not spiritual. It's also something that's physical. That the the life force of all living beings besides man is also under the category called physical. He calls it something Dak Shebagashmius. Dakim Shebagashmius is like the most refined physical, but it's still physical. Within the physical world, you also get. He says that in this in Aleph towards the end about you're on the same edition, page 38, the end of Aleph, about 6 lines before the end. The most refined of the physical. That means that within physical you can have more coarse and more refined. You could have earth, water, air, fire, right? It gets.
How come we don't see Shadim? Many people don't see Shadim today. Most people do not.
Right. It doesn't say that you could see them. He says that. I mean.
Rome didn't see them either. They said that they're worn out clothing.
So even though it says it's not partly physical, it doesn't say in what ways. I just said that I quoted him. He doesn't. He just says be'ezah b'chinot. Again, how does he say? He says eino nigbal b'chol kvuli hageshem hamugash v'chukav. He says it's not in the category that will be considered tangible. So in that sense, it will be considered somewhat loosely. You can call it spiritual, but he says that it's not because it doesn't have all spiritual aspects. So I just quoted a Gemara in the Chagiga that says that these points of physicality they have, that they eat and drink and reproduce and die. But as far as seeing them, so it seems that that's not one of the aspects that they're considered physical. You can't not necessarily see them. I don't know. I'm ignorant. I don't know of anything about this. I'm just telling you what I have this Ramchal and the Gemara in Chagiga. I think it's Daf Tezayin more or less. I think that's where it is over there. Chagiga, Tezayin, Amalf. There's also Gemara in Eruvin that I came across, a Gemara about Yosef Shida. The Gemara talks about a Shay that he was involved in learning. He said the Chef Shmaitzav, he said last week, he said over 7 Gemaras in Tzipori and in Tveria. The question was how he got there on Shabbos. The Gemara, he wasn't Shomer Shabbos. It could be a Shay that doesn't go according to the halachas of Shabbos. So that's points of interest. I don't know much. And you'll find other things about Shaydim. By Shlomo Melech talks about he was Melech al Shaydim also.
Keep Shabbos. You're
right. The Shay doesn't have to keep Shabbos. It talks first the Gemara. You're right. And I said it because the Gemara talks about who's the one. The Gemara has issue over there about Tchum on Shabbos. Tchum l'mala me'asara. The Gemara thought that if some spiritual being was able to get from one place to another, it must be that you're allowed to travel above 10 tvachim. The Gemara thought it was Eliyahu Hanavi. The Gemara says no. Eliyahu Hanavi is Shomer Shabbos. So the Gemara says no. It might have been Yosef Shida that doesn't keep Shabbos. I don't know anything. I'm just saying these issues that I came across. And he doesn't even tell us what their tafkid is, what their assignment, what their job is. And it seems that it's not important for him in his essay, whatever he wants to give us this information. He just wanted to categorize parts of creation, spiritual, physical. He talks about demons in the footnote, so to speak, that it has parts of both. But man is not like that. It isn't that man has some issues like that, some issues like that. Man has both issues. He's completely spiritual and completely physical, bound together. A spiritual soul and I don't know. Anybody? They call it a ruach. I don't know. Ruchos v'shidin. I don't know.
Because apparently there hasn't been a temple for the last 100 years or something.
Yeah, but that isn't such a long time. It means that if they had it 100 years ago, we have testimony that they witnessed it. So it isn't. That's a chiddush that it hasn't been so long ago. But I don't know more. So when I don't know, I like to say I don't know. If anybody gets any information, knows anything about it, please share it with us, but I don't know. And so he said, his main point is to say, I mean, he's going to talk about all these points, not only man, but this paragraph, I think, is very important to point that to emphasize this point that man is the only such creation. Even animals that also have life, that life is also considered daksha begashmi. But and he says man also has that issue of life force. But besides that, he also has a spiritual soul. And the purpose of the spiritual soul is, as we said earlier, that it's the part of man which is inclined more to do good, and that is and it's going to affect the guf. It's going to purify and affect the guf, and man forever is going to be his soul and his body together. Even though there's a temporary separation from death until Tchias HaMesim, but then eventually it's going to come back, and that was spoken about in the earlier prakim. Now he goes on to explain more about the Kochos and Avdolim and the Malachim, which he just told us they are spiritual creations, but we don't know much about it. So now he's going to explain them. Oz Beis, page 38 in the regular edition. Oz Beis. Hanevram Hagashmiyim Yidum Hem Aslenu V'chukoseihem U'mishpeteihem Hativiyim B'chlalam V'forsamim. The physical creations, we know about them. We could recognize the physical creations, and we know their laws, their laws of nature in general. And if you don't know it, so we could study it. Most of it is studied, and you go to the sciences and understand. The sciences will explain the laws of nature of the physical beings. But the spiritual beings, we can't imagine them well because we don't know them. We don't have any way of sensing the spiritual beings. So we don't know anything about them except what we were told. We're going to speak about them and their issues only according to what was handed down to us. It means we wouldn't be able to know it through our senses, but we could know it through a Masorah, and we do have some information that was handed down to us from those who do know. And they told us what we know about spiritual beings, which you said before, are divided into neshamos, as we said, the kochos and malachim. Neshamos are those spiritual beings which are bound to a body, to a physical body, and nivdalim and kochos and malachim are not. They're purely spiritual, and malachim we know are angels. We have come across angels in the Torah learning, even like you said by Avram, and we see malachim. But the kochos we don't see in the mikra, and in Gemara also probably not in a superficial way. Maybe we'll find something about it after we know what it is. So now he's going to explain to us what.
That's called koyach.
No, that's something else altogether. You talk about the spheros, which he's not going to use that terminology in this book, but he's going to say other words to explain it. But that's going to be ways that Hashem conducts himself towards the world. So it's not a creation. The spheros that are usually used in the language of Kabbalah is the midos. Those are Hashem's ways of connecting to the world, to the creations. But that's not a creation. That's Hashem's way of acting. It's a defined ways of action. So we have to differentiate between that and a creation. Here we're talking about spiritual beings. It's actual creation. As he said, that's how we started off the parak. They're divided into two creations, Gashmiyim and Ruchaniyim. But Hashem is not under the category called spiritual. It's not a creation. So just to point out, we said it many times, just to say it again, that it talks about the neshama being a creation. So that means that it's not God. And everybody should know that the soul is not God. And we say every morning, the neshama that you gave me is pure, you created it. So the neshama is not God, it's a creation. It's a spiritual creation. Now we're learning about it, that it's a spiritual creation which was bound to a physical body. But it's not God, it is a spiritual creation. And now he starts to explain to us the spiritual beings that we know about, which kochos and malachim. What we know from the big principles that we have. Shekeneged kol ma shenimtza banimtza mashfolim nimtzaim lemala kochos nivdolim shemehem mishtalshelim v'yotzim v'seider echad shel ishtalshelu shekaz v'chachmos yizborach hashfolim ha'ela heimu mekreihem. Anything that exists in the physical world, there is corresponding to it a spiritual force that is the source of that physical being. That's the word koch. The word koch is a force. The force is the force of its existence. That it's the root. I would call it a spiritual root. Everything that exists in our physical world has a spiritual root. That spiritual root is called kochos nivdalim. It's a spiritual being, and it's a very high being. It might even be higher. I think it is higher than even Malachim. And that is the source of all physical beings that exist.
I thought that's not the Koich he speaks about.
That is the koichos. That's the koichos. He says here, koichos. Nimtzam lemala kochos nivdolim. That's the word kochos nivdolim. That's what he said before. He called it nivdolim, and then he said that's divided into kochos and to malachim. So kochos nivdolim is this aspect. They translated as transcendental forces, some spiritual force. But what is it? It's not a messenger. Like an angel, we'll see, it's a messenger. Like the word malach. Malach means a messenger. It has a mission to do. But this, its hagdara, its definition is not that it's a malach, but that it's a koach. And this is what?
Like in the Bria, that spiritual koach, which is the shoroshim of the Bria.
Right, it's a shorish of the Nevrah Mashvalim. It's also called the Bria. We have to always remember that we're not talking about the spheres. It's talking about spiritual creations. But these spiritual creations are the spiritual root of the physical creations. Hashem could have made the physical creations without these roots, but He chose to do it this way. It doesn't say yet why, but I think in the Hemshech of the Sefer we find out more information about it, especially in the last Chelek. There's going to be more reference and more of a detailed account of these Kochos Nivdolim. So he says that Hashem made in his wisdom, according to the wisdom that Hashem organized, how they should develop from these spiritual roots. They say, use the word Ishtal, that these are spiritual roots, that from them come all the Shvalim. The word Shvalim literally means lowly. Lowly means the physical beings are called the lowly beings. It's lowly in relation to the spiritual beings, so it calls it Shvalim. So even the heavenly bodies are also called Shvalim. As we said, that's also called physical. You call it a lowly body, even if it will be outer space, it's also called a lowly body, because it's lowly in relation to the spiritual beings who are on a much higher level. So again, from the great principles that we know, that we have in our hand, that were handed down to us, is that corresponding to everything that exists in the physical world, there exists in a spiritual sense the spiritual roots that from them devolve. I would use the word devolve, mishtal shalim. I don't know if that's a word that, but it means that the word mishtal shel is like a chain of development. Here it's not going up, it's going down. That these are a higher being, and from them is mishtal shel, a physical being. Sometimes people, I think, make a mistake with the word mishtal shel, that as if it becomes it, as if it transforms. That's not correct. The spiritual being doesn't transform to become a physical being. It means that from a chain of events, or I give a mashal. I don't know if it's a good mashal, but on my own mashal that I think. I just saw an article about something. One of the government officials, not over here, maybe in America, that I saw it, that his big campaign is about making kindergarten or preschool for fourth grader, for 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds. So here you have somebody that is in a high government position, maybe a mayor or a governor, and he's talking about making a preschool for 3-year-olds. So when this eventually develops, that you have a kindergarten class for 3-year-olds, it was mishtal shel from this governor. It means the governor doesn't go and get the classroom and the teachers and the toys and everything you need for this classroom setting, and the bus that's going to bring in the children. But it's called that it was mishtal shel from him. It means he gave orders to his office, and later and on until it came to the one who's going to get the classroom and the children and the buses and the toys, and you got a classroom of 3-year-olds. So here you have a case of something that was mishtal shel from a higher up. What is that? Delegated. You can say delegated, but the point that it's going down, right, down in level. You have a source, a high source, and then things. He causes things to happen. It's not so much a root. You wouldn't call this governor a root. You could, in a sense, you could call it a root. He's the root of the existence of this kindergarten for 3-year-olds, or else it wouldn't exist.
The brainchild.
The brainchild. Yeah. Maybe that's a nice word. For. But that would only be in an idea, like in the fact that he had the idea and then he promoted it and then it got people to do it, to agree to him. Here it's going to be something more, that this somehow created the power behind the creation of the physical beings. So he's a higher being. This koach is a higher being, and it's the root, the spiritual root of what eventually became to be a physical being. I wanted to use them. Yes.
They used to serve these
It could be. It could be. Later on, he's going to go into these points that there are ways that people might circumvent the regular order of things and try to make changes by going to either malachim. Maybe he talks about kochos and avdalim also. I think over there he talks about malachim, that people, they try to circumvent the nature of things. And sometimes you're allowed to, sometimes you're not allowed to. So we'll get to that later on. I think it's going to be in Chela Gimel in part 3.
Circumvent what?
The regular orders of things. It means if the sorcery or ways of doing things unnaturally, causing miracles to happen, is it possible to do it by going to the root? I'll get to the root of the matter. I'm not going to go through the regular order of things. So, let's say someone gave a mashal of let's say in a mashal of something that's prohibited to do. Someone wants to get a loan from a bank, so he has to go to the president of the bank, apply for a mortgage, whatever it might be, and after the whole procedure, he'll be eligible to get a loan, and he'll get a note from the whoever is supposed to, and he goes to the teller and he gets his 100,000 shekel. But someone figures, why do you have to go through all this bureaucracy? He just goes to the teller and has a nice talk with him on the side over a coffee, and he gives him straight out of the cash register. So that's not the way you're supposed to do it. You're not supposed to circumvent the regular way of doing things, going to the top. So it might be that there are certain kochos that have the power to do certain things, but they're supposed to be in the order of Hashem told them what to do. And if someone needs something, they go to Hashem. You don't go to the koch hanivdal. Are there ways that is permissible? So we'll see later on. There might be some permissible ways of circumventing the nature way either. Davening, you're going to Hashem. Davening, you're turning. No. It's also to daven to a malach. You're only davening to Hashem.
Because the malachim, I thought, take the tefillahs.
But the most.
That's why it's a Brit.
That's why what?
Why is it in Lashon Kodesh? It's not Aramaic.
So they're the ones who are bringing. No, that just means they're the ones who are going to present the tefillah to Hashem. But you're not davening to the angels. You're davening to Hashem.
Yeah.
That's a difference. And also, you could also ask the malachim, like it became a famous song. It's from Slichas. Malachim Machnise Rachamim. You're addressing the malachim to bring the tefillahs to Hashem,
right,
but you're not asking them for help.
Right, yeah.
I think it's pretty clear that it's also to ask a malach for supernatural help. You can't turn to them for help. There are cases where you do see that you ask them for help. By Rismila, the Moel says, Aliyah malach habris, amod al mini v'samcheni. So you're asking the Aliyah to help you. Other such things. So you ask, maybe it's not so different, you ask Barchuni l'shalom. On Friday night, you ask the malachim for a bracha. That's also not bad. You're asking them for a bracha. You're not asking them for the actual help.
You say mi melech malach hamlochim.
Barchuni l'shalom, malachi shalom, mi melech. So if asking them for a bracha also probably is not, or you can ask them to daven for you, that's all within the parameters of permission.
Feel in Rosh Chodesh that's where it comes in after I think it's after Musa. Or after Halal, there's a little tefillah.
After Halal.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar. What is it? Who are you addressing?
Yeah, so there is a place where you actually you use a name to call. It's a name of, obviously it's...
A name might not necessarily mean the name of a malach. It might be a name of Hashem.
Right, so that's...
I'm not familiar with the tefillah.
It sounds like a malach. I asked Rav Scheinberger once, why do we daven to a malach? He said, it's a good question.
I'm not familiar. If it's a name of a malach, then what are you asking for? What is that the prayer for?
What are you asking for? It's blank in my days. Give me a bracha.
Give me a bracha or lengthen my days. They're two different things. If it's for a bracha, I wouldn't be surprised. But if it's asking the malach for long days, I'd be very surprised. Just because.
What?
Yes.
Yaakov asked the malach for bracha.
Yeah, to ask for bracha is okay. To ask the malach to daven you for you probably is okay. But to ask the malach for help. So I think there's also a distinction. If you ask something...
You found it, maybe.
But that doesn't make something permissible. Talking about if you're allowed to do something. That might be if a person goes after tumah, so then maybe they'll help him to get tumah. But that's not what we're talking about. We want to know if it's permissible to ask a malach. So so far, my what I know so far would be that you're allowed to ask him to daven for you or to give for a bracha, but you wouldn't allowed to ask him to help you. But within helping also, there might be permissiveness, might be permissive if permittable from.
So it goes like this: Yesh noagin lomar berosh kodesh halel pasuk zeh betov larichet yamim.
A pasuk is okay.
Zakin, no, but that's not the end of the story. Avram zakin ba biyamin v'Hashem barech Avram bakol, and then it says YOMI. Then it says the name is Vadia.
Maybe.
And then it says Yishmereni v'chayenu ken yiratzon yofanecha. Oh, there you go. It says Yivadia Yishmerenu v'chayenu ken yiratzon yofanecha lim chaim u'melech halam asher biyadcha nefesh kulcha.
So you're speaking to Hashem. You're addressing
Right,
Hashem.
it starts off with the.
So I don't know what that is. If it's the name of Hashem, what's the name? But okay, but I don't know anything. But I just would say that since you're addressing Hashem, so that's okay.
Right.
If you ask Hashem, if you ask Hashem to send you malachim, that's okay. I wouldn't see a problem with that. But I'm not familiar with this name. I don't know. But in general, even when you ask Eliyahu Navi, when the Moel says Amod al mini v'samcheni, it could be that it's permissible because you're not asking him for something supernatural. It means that something that a human being also could have done. So maybe you're allowed to ask a malach, even though he happens to be a malach, but he could do something physical also, so to speak, something that's within the realm of humanity. So maybe that you're allowed to ask. But if you're asking him for a supernatural kochos, but you're asking him for help. So that's those psukim, those tefillos, where you're addressing a malach and asking him for help. Well, you have to. There are a certain category that has to be maybe categorized. When yes, when not. But in general, we don't. What?
That's probably a very good source.
Yes. I'm not questioning it. I want to know what the definition, what the parameters.
That's a very, very good source.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the source should show us that there's a certain category that's permissible.
There are people who say not to say it.
Right. I saw an article, a very interesting article, that I was looking about this subject.
Nobody says not to say that.
Yes, that's right. So I think that historically, everyone said it, and then there was some talk against it. But the old custom was to say all these things, and then the Reform, interestingly enough, they joined on the bandwagon because anything that they wanted to change, they wanted to change. If anybody, even though in the beginning the Reform weren't like today, they were still within the guidelines that so when it came a movement of some Rabbanim to change it, so they said yes, change it, anything change. They want to change. They were just for change. Whatever you change, as long as you change it. So that's why it became a big subject. Which in the sources it doesn't seem to be much of an issue. All the tefillos and the slichas, it doesn't seem to be much of a. The song made it famous now. Most people don't say it in the Siddur, but once it became a song, everybody knows about it. But I saw an article about a list of about 25 tefillos or slichas or zmiras that were mukubal and all of Am Yisrael, and it wasn't much of an issue. I think that the poskim do permit it. But okay, if there's a machlokas about it, that's fine. But the point would be that we don't turn in general. We don't turn to angels for help. We don't go to them. We go to Hashem. Okay, we are off the subject a little bit.
In Aramaic, is supposed to skip the malachim completely
because they don't understand the languages.
That's.
In general, it says that you should not daven in different languages because you want the malachim to help you to take the tefillos.
Yeah, but the Shekhinah is present because you're davening in a minyan.
So then you don't need the malachim to help you.
But why for the close soul you got the Shekhinah? So why you don't even need the minyan?
Don't start up.
I don't know. Okay, so back to the subject. It says that the issue, the purpose of these kochos nivdolim is that they're the spiritual root of all creations. So just to read it again. Within it has like a parenthesis. They made a hyphens, whatever. But the sentence they read straight would be that Hashem organized that for every physical, I'll call it lowly, but lowly means physical. Every physical being, there are a spiritual root that it devolves, is that a good word? From it. That these shvalim, these physical beings are a result of those spiritual roots. Heim umikreihem. They and their mikrim. So the mikrim would be anything about it. You have the being itself, the actual creation of a physical being, and the mikrim would be everything about it, all of its characteristics, its properties. Every physical creation has many properties. If it's going to be the sun has its properties, the moon has its properties, electrons have their properties, any part of the human body has its properties. So all of the properties of every creation are also a result of these spiritual roots. So it comes out, after we explain this, that these spiritual roots are the root. Like this is the first time he says the word root. I used it earlier because I got it from the end of the paragraph. Before he just said that it's from them it's mishtalshel. And now he uses the word root. It's a shorish. The relationship between the kochos, these forces, and the physical creations are that they're the root and they're the branch. That's the words that he used. Shorashim and shorish and anaf. The kochos are the shorish for the physical beings, and the physical beings are the branch and the tolada. Tolada would be a result, a consequence of those kochos. And they are connected to each other like the rings of a chain. The fact that they were mishtalshel, that means that these physical beings are devolved. I use the word devolved out of no better word, but if you find a better word, please tell me. That they...
Corollary. It's like a totzah, right?
A totzah, but he's using it, that a totzah, a result, a consequence.
It's a corollary, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I wanted to avoid using a word which would sound like a transformation, not that spiritual is becoming physical, that's the mistake. What?
How you know it here? It's more mashma like that because they're not meant shoroshim.
The shorish doesn't become the anaf.
But it's
it's the root and it comes out of it. Yes, it creates it. Isn't it a good mashal that the shorish, a root, it creates the branch, it creates the tree, whatever it has in it, the DNA and all that. It has the factory that it could produce it.
But it grows from it.
Yes, but it's not. It isn't that the root is transforming itself to become a branch. You don't say that the root became an apple. The root has in it the factory in order to produce the fruit. Does it become it? The fruit. It doesn't become.
After everything grows out of it.
It grows out of it.
Like
that means.
Say you have the sapling and then.
Don't you look at it like a factory that it has within it all the tools that it needs in order to produce more, that it gets higher and higher, bigger, and then eventually the fruit comes out. But not that the root becomes a fruit.
Okay.
So when people use the word mishtal shel, and sometimes they say that it transforms. I think it's a mistake. It's a wrong understanding to say that it's transforming. It's creating. So the spiritual root is the source of the creation of the physical result.
Between the two?
Which between one and what?
Transform and...
I think transforming, it becomes that. It changes to become some. When you boil a liquid, it transforms into a gas. It means the same thing transformed into something else. It transformed, it changed form. But this is not changing form. This is creating. It's a creative root. So the words that he used now is a shoresh and a anaf, a root and a branch. That's what he tells us so far about these kochos, these spiritual forces. And now he has a paragraph to tell us about the malachim, about the angels. Od mesoros biyadenu shal kol etzem v'chol mikra shebanim tzoyim hashfolim ha'ela hufkedu pekidim en asuga malachi shezachanu lamala. Another thing that we have in a Masorah, we wouldn't be able to know it on our own, but we have a tradition about this, that for every etzem and every mikra that exists, these are the same words used before, heim umikreyem, means the word, these are using words, terminology of the science of logic, that he uses the word etzem and mikra. So etzem is the thing, the substance itself, and the mikra are its properties. Like we used before, mashal, that there'll be the actual being, the sun, is the etzem sun, and the properties, its characteristics. So before we said that the roots, these kochos are the spiritual roots of everything that exists, both their substance, their essence, and also their properties. So here he says that for every substance and every property that exists in the physical beings, hufkedu pekidim men asuga malachi shezacharnu lamala, was assigned pekidim. Anybody can help me with a word for pekidim? A pakid. What is a good word for a pakid? Someone who's in charge of something. Someone, an officer. Another word? A pakid. What do you call a pakid? Anybody? Okay, the one who is in charge of that position. I'm sure there's a simple word. I'm just not coming.
This is one in charge.
One in charge. You couldn't get a better word.
Under the charge of something.
Under the charge. Okay, under the charge of an angel, from the kind called the angelic kind, Suga Malachi. And their job, the job of these malachim is lekayem ha'etzem hahu ha'mikrahu b'nemtzos hashvolim k'fi ma'shehu u'lechadesh ma'sheroi l'schadesh b'ashvolim k'fi agzer el yona. Their job is to maintain that substance or property, or to change it. L'chadesh, whatever is supposed to, according to whatever the supreme decree decrees that there should be some chidush in that thing, so they're the malachim are the ones who are doing that. So the etzem being the etzem existence of the substance or the property, its essence is rooted in the spiritual source. That's the source of its existence. The fact that the sun exists and the fact that the sun has the property that gives off light and heat, all of those things, that's rooted, its existence is rooted in the spiritual forces. That's the kochas anavdalim. But maintaining it, whatever that means, taking care of it, whatever you need to maintain it, or if there has to be a change of some sort, there's going to be, I don't know any changes in the sun, but if there might be at different times. We have sometimes that the Hashem made that the sun should go faster or slower. So at times of Yeshua, so if there'd be such an issue which causes there should be a change by any time by the Gzeira of Hashem, so then the Malachim are the ones who are assigned to do that. Hashem doesn't have to have Malachim, Hashem doesn't have to have a Kochas Anavdalim. It doesn't say that Hashem is doing it because he needs to do it that way. He could have done it without them. But this is the way that he desired, he willed, he chose to do it, and we'll see later on maybe why that's so, if we have any understanding. But so far this is just a description of what is the Metzios, what are the facts. Oz Gimel. Since the source of everything is really these spiritual roots, so if you want to know the essence, the ikar essence, so that's where it is. It's the source. Whatever we see as a result, that's not where the things are happening. That's only it's like you have some control of and then it comes out on the screen. So the screen is the result of whatever you're having in the control box. I don't know the words to use in photography, whatever you might use, whatever's shooting it onto the camera screen, so when we only see the screens, we see the result of it. But really, the source of what's happening is really whatever's happening on the projector. What is that? The software. So here he's using that as a mashal. He doesn't use the mashal, I use the mashal, but the point is to say that if you want to know where the real essence of things are, it's over there, and the spiritual roots. Here, it's just a result of what happened over there.
So he comes to say that these are stronger Gurmim than the Malachim.
Right.
Do sometimes changes, but
they maintain. I think is the way he's differentiating is that they're the source of its existence. And the Malachim,
usually everything goes according to those.
The Malachim are the ones who are maintaining, they're taking care of it. They're the ones who are taking care of it. But the source of their existence is the Kochas Anavdalim. So he does not. I don't think he talks here about the Malachim in contrast. This paragraph Gimel, he's not contrasting the Kochas with the Malachim. He's contrasting. But I think but you mean to say in contrast with the Malachim. But I think he means to say in contrast with physical beings. As he continues the sentence. Even when someone would see the screen, let's say someone doesn't know photography, he'd look at the screen and say, that's where it is. So he's saying, that's not where it is. It's really in the software, in the projector. That's projecting it onto the screen. Now you see the screen. But that's only a result. So that's as much over here, that when you talk about the spiritual roots and the physical result, so the ikar, Mitzias, is really in the kochos. The toldos, masha bahem, umasha bagashim mashvalim. And only a result, the consequence of what's over there is what you see in the physical. But that's only a result. It's like everything that happens, let's say, in the government. The government officers are the ones who are making things move. And they're the ones who decide to make the decisions, and they make whatever necessary in order to get things to happen. Then you see it happening, bashetach, then it's happening. If there's a decision to go to war. So it's happening in the capital, in the White House, in the Knesset. Then on Bashetach, you'll see that the soldiers are going out. That's the result. But the Iker decision is made in the Kochas Anavdalim. B'zeh, and this that we say that the Iker is in the Kochas Anavdalim, and the physical beings are only a result. Bein Masha Betchila Sabriya, or Bein Masha Beschadesh Beschalfus Hazman. There's a word missing in the regular text. In this edition, there's a word missing. It should, after the word Techilas, you should put in the word Habriya. Even the way it says it, it's not grammatically correct to say Masha Betchilas. Something it just said Masha Betchila. So it's obviously missing a word. In the original text, it said Masha Betchilas Habriya. You put in the word Habriya. After the word Chilas should be the word Briya. It's missing in this edition. Both that which was from the beginning of creation, and also those things that change at the changing of times. Whenever Hashem has a reason why He wants to change something, so it all goes through the spiritual roots. Means if Hashem wants to change something, so to speak, He's going to make the change in the spiritual root, and that's going to have an effect on the result. Same way we said with the picture on the screen. You want to change the picture on the screen, so you change it in the projector, and that's going to cause the result. V'hainu, ki kafi ma shenivra min hakochos hahem, u'kafi hasidur shenizderu v'agvulim shehugvulu, kach hayu ma shenishtalshelu achakach lefi chok hashtalshelus sheratza bo aboris baruch shemo. He said 2 stages: Tchilas habriya and whatever, and thereafter, whatever happened in the beginning of creation, and then afterwards also. So now he goes back to explain those 2 stages. What does it mean from the beginning of creation? According to what was created, the beginning of time, the beginning of creation, what was ever was created from those spiritual roots, and according to the way that they were organized and the limitations that Hashem made for them, whatever boundary Hashem made them, their limitations of those creations, so too was the result that evolved from them according to the Chokesh Talshos. Hashem made there should be a way that these should result like a root to a branch, that these roots should affect such branches, should make such kind of a result. So according to what Hashem made in the root, that's what happened in the result. And so too, the second thing he says was bein mashem eschadesh. On the third line he said mashad mechilas abriya bein mashem eschadesh betzchalfos azmanim. So first, to the next 3 lines, he explains what was mechilas abriya. Means when Hashem made these creations, He made the creation of the spiritual root, and then the physical was a consequence, a result. And now he's going to explain what does it mean uvein mashem eschadesh betzchalfos azmanim. So he explains ukfi mashem eschadesh u'eschadesh bohem kachu mashem eschadesh u'eschadesh bashvalim. Whatever is renewed, changed in the spiritual roots, that's going to have an effect in the result. So the way it was made originally was made in the spiritual roots, and then the result of that was the spiritual, the physical, the way it came out. And if there's any change thereafter, from the time of creation until now, if Hashem ever makes a change, He makes the change in the spiritual root, and that automatically has an effect in the physical result. Achein, hamatzios, hamatzav, v'aseder, v'chol shar avchonos, v'kochos, הם כפי מה ששייך בהם ולפי אמיתת עניינם. כמה? והמציאוס והמצב והסדר וכל שאר המקרים השפולים משתלשל ונתק למה ששייך בהם ולפי אמיתת עניינם. I once heard a mashal about this just to make it easier. If you open up a recorder, MP3, whatever nowadays, they have MP3. You're not going to see somebody that has a horn and is blowing music over there, right? It's going to be in electrical impulses, whatever it works, whatever is inside the software. You don't have the result. It isn't the same. It isn't a miniature of the result that you find in the source. When you look inside take a seed, you cut open the seed, you're not going to see a little tree. It isn't going to be that the result, the language of the result and the language of the root is not the same thing. It has its own language. The language of the computer is not the language of the music that it's going to play. So when we talk about that, the spiritual roots are everything is that's where the source is, and the result is the same. It's a result of that. It doesn't mean that it's the same thing. So everyone has its own language. So he says that the existence, the situation, the organization, and any other aspect that's going to be in these spiritual roots is according to what is in their issue, according to their language, according to what they are. I mean, just because we know the result, it doesn't mean we have, like somebody knows how to read the screen. He sees the picture on the screen. He doesn't have the slightest of what's going on inside the software that produced that. It doesn't mean that if he understands that, he understands the source. It's a different language altogether. They have to know the binary equations. So it's a different language altogether. But there's a correlation between the result, the source and the result, or else it wouldn't produce it. There has to be some way of translating that. But he wants to make the point that just because we see the result, it doesn't mean we have a picture of what's doing in the Kochos and Avdalim. It's not that it's a world that is similar to our world. It's a different system. But that's the root of this. So that's the way he says it. That,
I would use the example of the tree.
yes.
And the root is actually giving sustenance to the tree, but the truth is as well, the leaves, through photosynthesis, supply
Nutrients back to the root, right? But I don't know if that part of the mashal would be applicable here. Whether there is going to be something coming up, maybe it is going to, maybe it is nice.
If you go to the root, you have to give certain chemicals. If you want to spray the leaves, you have to give other chemicals. There are different rules.
Yes, but this point about if the leaves have a way of affecting the roots also.
Reciprocity.
So it could be that later on, maybe in like next week or 2 weeks, we'll have something where there is some kind of a affecting the other way also. There's going to be a two-directional way. You're right, that maybe that'll be a nice mashal how to say that the leaves also somehow affect the roots also, and when we get there. So here he ended off, he said that the Metzius, Matzav, Seder, and then the other aspect, and the Kochos is according to what is in their in their world, whatever applies to them. And the same things, Mitzios, Matzav, Seder, and any other property that applies to the physical beings was Mishtalshel, which we'll use the word again, Dival, but whatever other word you want to use, and Netak, changed. Nowadays the word Netak, usually word is copied, but the word is not really copied. It's like Ne'aka. There's a copying over here, but it's copying not the same thing. It's going to be like change. The change of that is going to be applied. Maybe the word Netak it's going to be applied according to, that's a good word, I think. That the word Netak, that the change, whatever exists in the spiritual root is applied.
Replicated, no?
Replicate, but in a way I want to get a word that it's not the same thing. That's just application also might be right. Yeah, applied, replicate, but maybe application is better than replicate because it isn't the same thing that is happening over there. Maybe that is what the word means. I'm not duplicate, replicate, but if you say apply, it means that it's take whatever change was there and it's being applied in its language, in its world, in its system to what applies to the physical beings. Okay. Summary of today is that there is spiritual roots. These kochos and avdalim, which we didn't know what they were till now, they're spiritual, what do you call them? Transcendental forces. So he says they're the spiritual roots of everything physical, both in its substance and also in their properties. And the relationship would be like that of a root and a branch. After that he says that malachim are the ones who are assigned to maintain and to change anything which is supposed to be maintained or changed, either to keep it the same or to change it. And then he says that the ikar, metzios of anything, the ikar existence of anything really is in the source. Whatever we see is only an application, only a derivative. Afterwards, what happened as a result of those sources. But the real metzios is what's happening in the root world. And like you say that the main wars happen in the office. It doesn't happen on the battlefield. It's happening behind the closed doors. So here too, the real metzios of things are in the spiritual roots, and everything we see is only a result of that. What we see on the screen. Yashikah.